Another chilling childhood memory occurred when I was staying at my grandmother's house one stormy weekend. My grandma had run to the store, leaving me alone watching cartoons. The phone rang, and despite knowing better, my childish curiosity got the best of me. I answered. A man's voice asked for an adult. When I said no one was home, he pressed further, "So you're all alone right now?" Alarm bells rang in my head. I hung up quickly, but the damage was done. 20 minutes later, frantic knocking erupted at the front door. A man's voice cried out for help. Peering through the glass, I made eye contact with the stranger, a critical mistake. "Little boy, please open the door." "I'm hurt bad," he pleaded. Terrified, I hid behind the couch as the man's knocks grew more insistent. He tried the windows next, his pleas turning to demands. I fled to my grandmother's room, locking the door and burrowing under the covers. The sound of rain offered little comfort as I heard him trying to force open a window. When my grandma finally returned, I broke down crying and told her everything. The police were called, but the man was never caught. Looking back, I realize how close I came to being abducted that day. One unlocked door could have changed everything. It was a harsh lesson in the dangers that can lurk behind a stranger's voice. For as long as I can remember, sleep has been an elusive and often terrifying experience for me. I've battled numerous sleeping disorders, with night terrors and sleep paralysis being frequent, unwelcome visitors. The vividness of these episodes is truly unsettling. Countless times, I've jolted awake to the sight of spiders or massive insects crawling across my bed. In those heart-stopping moments, the illusions seem horrifyingly real. It's only as I regain full consciousness that these phantoms vanish, leaving me in a state of panicked confusion. More often than not, I find myself leaping out of bed, hurling pillows at these non-existent intruders, my screams piercing the night air. During a particularly grueling week of school, I found myself drowning in assignments. Mentally and physically drained, I pushed through the mounting pile of homework, knowing that half of it was due the following day. As Friday loomed, I found myself still awake at 3 a.m., with only 3 hours left before I needed to rise again. Finally completing my work, I collapsed into bed, instantly falling into a deep slumber. But my rest was far from peaceful. In my dream, I found myself trapped in a strange, linear building, desperately seeking an escape. Each room I entered was filled with candy, as if I had stumbled into some twisted Halloween attraction. All the while, the sound of a child's laughter echoed around me, growing louder with each step I took. As I reached what felt like the final door, the laughter crescendoed to an unbearable level. The moment I swung the door open, I awoke in my bed, paralyzed. The laughter persisted, seeming to emanate from the center of my room. Forcing my eyes to focus, I saw 4 figures standing there, a tall man and woman, accompanied by a small boy and girl. They stood hand in hand, their faces contorted into impossibly wide grins as they stared at me, their laughter unceasing. As the pressure in my chest built, a common sensation during sleep paralysis, the figures seemed to grow larger or perhaps move closer, floating towards me with their unnerving smiles. When I finally regained control of my body, I frantically threw off my sheets and hurled my pillows towards the apparitions, my scream shattering the silence. But as quickly as they had appeared, the figures vanished, taking their haunting laughter with them. This hallucination, far more intense than any I had experienced before, prompted me to seek medical help. The following day, I visited my doctor, who prescribed new medication to address these disturbing episodes. While I still experience night terrors on occasion, nothing has come close to the intensity of that chilling encounter. As a father of 2 boys, aged 15 and 10, I never expected to face such a frightening situation in my own home. On what seemed like an ordinary afternoon, with my wife away and me trying to catch a quick nap, our lives were suddenly thrown into chaos. My older son's constant comings and goings with friends were normal background noise. But on this day, the repetitive slamming of doors began to grate on my nerves. After the fourth thunderous slam of our storm door, I found myself whistling sharply, hoping to quiet the ruckus. However, the disturbance only intensified. Strange thumping noises emanated from my younger son Keith's room across the hall. At first, I dismissed it as typical child's play. Perhaps he was engaged in an enthusiastic wrestling match with his toys. But even through my closed door, the persistent pounding became impossible to ignore. Irritation mounting, I strode across the hall to investigate. As I approached Keith's room, the rhythmic thumping grew more distinct. Pushing open the already ajar door, I barked Keith's name angrily, only to be confronted by a chilling sight. There, facing the wall, stood a grown man I'd never seen before. He was violently smashing his head against the wall, leaving sickening streaks of blood with each impact. As I stood frozen in shock, the stranger turned slightly, fixing me with a sidelong glance that sent shivers down my spine. Instinct took over, and I tackled the intruder to the ground. It was then that I spotted Keith, cowering beneath his sheets in terror. The man offered no resistance, instead launching into a stream of incoherent babbling that only highlighted his clearly unstable state of mind. With shaking voice, I instructed Keith to fetch the house phone while I maintained my hold on the stranger. Those 5 minutes waiting for the police felt like an eternity, filled with the man's unsettling laughter and nonsensical ramblings. In the aftermath, it became clear that the intruder was suffering from severe mental illness, drug abuse, or both. While I chose not to press charges, I took solace in knowing he would receive the professional help he so desperately needed. This harrowing experience served as a stark reminder of the unexpected dangers that can invade even the safest of spaces, forever changing our sense of security within our own home. I was just 9 years old when I encountered one of the most haunting and inexplicable events of my life. It was a typical day. I was home alone, working on a history paper in my upstairs bedroom. Or so I thought. Suddenly, I heard my mom's voice calling my name from downstairs. Annoyed at the interruption, I yelled back what, but got no response. Grudgingly, I made my way downstairs to see what she wanted. With each step, my mom's voice rang out, calling my name. But something wasn't right. Her tone was eerily consistent, as if on a loop. At the bottom of the stairs, I scanned the basement. Empty. The only place left to check was the crawl space closet, its door slightly ajar. Heart pounding, I approached and peered into the pitch-black interior. "Mom, are you messing with me?" I asked weakly. No answer came. Just the faint buzz of the basement light. Panic seized me. I sprinted back upstairs, slamming and locking the basement door behind me. Hands shaking, I called my mom's cell phone. To my shock, she answered. She had been out grocery shopping the whole time. It took ages to convince my parents of what had happened. When we finally investigated the basement together, the crawl space was empty. To this day, I have no explanation for the phantom voice that called my name. A few months ago, I started casually seeing a guy named Spencer. We met through a coworker at a bar one night and hit it off. After dating on and off for a while, I finally introduced him to my family. While my parents were indifferent, my grandparents, especially my grandmother, had strong negative reactions. They said they sensed something bad about Spencer and felt he wasn't a good match for me. This wasn't just a first impression either. Their opinion remained even after multiple meetings. As time went on, I started to see what my grandparents meant. Spencer and I argued constantly. He had a quick temper and would lose his cool with me frequently. We were on again, off again as a result. Things came to a head one night when Spencer nearly became physically violent during an argument. Though he restrained himself, it was enough for me to end things definitively. My grandmother was relieved when I broke it off with Spencer. She encouraged me to find a nice Italian boy from a good family instead. Sadly, not long after this, my grandmother passed away from a heart attack. To honor her memory, I hung a cherished photo of her in my bedroom. A month passed, and I was struggling with grief. In a moment of weakness, I reconnected with Spencer when he reached out. We started seeing each other again over the next 2 weeks. Things seemed different this time. Spencer was calmer, we weren't fighting, and I felt safe with him. We decided to make our relationship official. That very night, I was jolted awake by a loud crash. When I turned on the light, I was shocked to see that the framed photo of my grandmother had fallen off the wall and shattered. There was no clear explanation, no draft or disturbance that could have caused it. Deeply shaken, I called Spencer the next day to end things, explaining I wasn't in the right headspace for a relationship. His angry reaction on the phone confirmed my grandmother's instincts about him had been right all along. But I can't shake the eerie timing of that photo falling. Was it truly just a coincidence? Or could it have been some kind of sign or message from beyond? The thought gives me chills. This experience has left me questioning so much about what I believe. My accommodations for the night were sparse, just a wooden bench and an intimidating cellmate. This guy looked like he'd stepped straight out of a crime drama, complete with facial tattoos and a missing front tooth. His appearance screamed danger, and I knew I was out of my element. Trying to keep the peace, I cautiously shared my story when he asked. As the night wore on and my frustration mounted, I found myself opening up more than I should have. I mentioned details about my comfortable neighborhood, my parents being out of town, and the pre-game party at my house before hitting the club. In retrospect, divulging such information was incredibly naive. Morning brought a court appearance for both of us. I faced bogus charges of assault and trespassing, while my cellmate had his own legal troubles. After my hearing, I was released with a future court date, eager to put this nightmare behind me. That night, as I tried to relax at home, an eerie feeling crept over me. With the windows open, I heard multiple sets of footsteps circling the house. Alarmed, I began closing windows, saving the backyard sliding door for last. When I flipped on the deck light, 2 figures darted into the darkness, one unmistakably my former cellmate. It dawned on me then, he had used the information I'd carelessly shared to track me down, likely planning to rob my family's home. A quick Google search of my name, overheard in court, had probably led him straight to our address. Thankfully, my unexpected presence seemed to deter them, and I heard nothing more that night. To this day, my parents remain unaware of my arrest or how close we came to being burglarized. It's a chilling reminder of how a single night's poor decisions can have far-reaching consequences. This one goes back a few years ago. When I was 30 years old, I was at my condo in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My condo, which I still own, is on the 2nd floor of a decently nice building that I won't name for privacy reasons. Whenever I go down there, it's in the colder months up north, and I'm a complete beach bum when I go down there. Luckily for me, I work remotely for my job through my laptop and phone, so I've been able to retreat down there. Whenever I'd like, Fort Lauderdale is for the most part a pretty clean and safe city. And the specific location my building is in is no exception, that is usually. It was the middle of January. It was late at night, past 10 o'clock. I was out on my balcony with my feet over the railing on my laptop when all of a sudden I heard from down below on the ground someone yelling something. They were yelling at me. "Hey you!" At first I didn't move, taking the assumption that whoever it was talking to someone else, they couldn't possibly be calling up to me. But they followed with "Hey you up there," and my heart skipped a beat because now I knew they were talking to me. Question was why? I set my laptop down on the chair and looked over the railing down to the ground below. There was a guy in front of a car in the parking lot looking up at me, and he said, "Yeah, I asked what's up. He told me to come down there so he could show me something cool. I took a better look at this guy. Some guy with a backwards hat and tank top on. I thought he was just some punchy kid messing with me, so I just looked away and sat back down. When I did that, I heard him laughing while he said, "I'm going to come up there and skin you alive, you prick." I got up again, and he is staring at me, had this creepy and evil grin on his face. I realized he looked much older than what I thought. It wasn't some kid. Literally opened my mouth to shout something back at him, but for some reason I didn't bother. I grabbed my laptop and went inside and shut the sliding door. I expected him to yell up a couple things afterwards, but I didn't hear him. So as uncomfortable as that made me, felt much safer being inside. I changed it up to just the occasional coked up Florida lunatics on the streets. But things got to the next level when the silence of the room was broken by pounding on my condo door, accompanied with a voice screaming obscenities and threats at me. It was the guy again. The bangs were so loud, I was genuinely concerned he was going to break the door down. All I could do was yelling, "I'm calling the police." I didn't face his bangs turn to these carvings and stabbing noises. It probably all lasted for about a minute or two, but felt like a century until he gave one more loud angry bang. Screamed one more obscenity at me, then left. I knew because I checked through the peephole. I called the police after the ordeal, just to show them and reported to them on the other side of the door there were several stab marks in it, confirming. Did hear him stabbing at it and confirming this man had a knife. I prayed nobody was harmed that night. I doubt he knew me. I think he was just a really drugged out crazy person looking to hurt someone. I'm not a fan of my dad's girlfriend at all. Not from the start. Her name is Kathy. My dad has been widowed since 2019, when our mom died, and I know he's got lonely, and he's pretty much ready to settle with anybody now, even Kathy, and against my warnings, he doesn't listen. I've been seeing her do some sketchy things around the house, and it's really starting to freak me out now. I'll start from the beginning. I have two siblings, my 10-year-old brother Jake and my 2-year-old brother Scotty. From the day he introduced her to us, didn't like something about her smile. It was just unsettlingly wide and exaggerated. Pretty soon he'd start bringing her around a lot more, and I just never loved her, honestly. But at first, it was only because I felt something was off about her personality. Then things started happening. She's been staying with us for a while now, and a few weeks ago, I caught her in my dad's closet while he wasn't home. My dad's safe is in his closet, along with where he hides the combination and some other valuables. When she saw me at the doorway, smiled and said, "Hey, what's up, sweetie?" with her annoying, creepy smile. I didn't say anything other than nothing. Then she shut his closet door, and I walked away to my room. I told my dad about it, but he didn't seem concerned. A few days after that, while my dad was at work again, I just got back from school and I was walking upstairs to my room, and as I saw Kathy leave my little brother Jake's room and shut the door behind her. I asked her what she was doing in his room. She smiled and said, "I was just opening the window, it's hot in the house." I didn't answer and walked up to my room. When I heard her go downstairs, eventually I snuck to Jake's room to check if she actually had opened the window. And both windows were shut. Something was up with this lady, and I knew it, and I still know it. I told my dad again, and in response he asked me to just please be patient with the situation and that he knows I don't care for Kathy. I didn't bother telling Jake. Fast forward to 2 days ago. Jake, my dad, and I were all not home, and Kathy was babysitting Scotty. I came home unannounced, but I wanted to be secretive about it because I wanted to see if could catch her doing anything again. I snuck into the house and went to my room quietly, eventually from the kitchen downstairs. I started to hear Scotty crying, not regular crying, like a very distressed kind of crying. And I heard Kathy is screaming at the top of her lungs, "Shut the F up." It was the first time I heard her raise her voice, and I believe it wasn't the first time. I was hearing her true colors come out. I ran downstairs to yell at her to leave. She was startled and shocked that I was home. And for the first time, she didn't give me her creepy smile. She looked at me blankly and went downstairs and shut the door. I called my dad and told him right away. And that night my dad had a conversation with her about it. I don't know how it went, but I assume not good. Because that night I woke up in the middle of the night to something looked up into my room. There was someone in my room and they quickly left the room and shut the door behind them. I got out of bed and opened my door, and as I got into the hall I saw and heard my dad's bedroom door closes. I don't know my dad believed me or not, but he told me to go back to my room. And he'd talk with Kathy. I obeyed, and I heard them whispering as I shut the door. I went back to bed, and I was scared. I'm still scared. I want her out of the house, and out of our lives. I think she's dangerous. Why was she in my room? It's freaking me out. I worry for my family's well-being. And I don't know what we can do. There was a brief period of time that I lived alone. When I freshly moved out of my parents' house and before I met my girlfriend and she moved in, and I lived in a small one-bedroom apartment in the downstairs of someone else's house. I spent a lot of time alone during this period of my life besides when I was at school or work, and so I spent a lot of my time watching movies. Specifically, I liked watching scary movies pretty often. Even as an at the time 21-year-old guy, I still would be a little spooked trying to sleep after watching a scary movie, especially living alone in that apartment. And every time that I look around the room at a few points, I would even turn the bedside lamp on just to check around the room. The tenant upstairs wasn't home that night as his car wasn't in the driveway, so the sounds I was hearing couldn't have been footsteps upstairs or anything like that. My nerves were really starting to set in at one point because I just kept hearing noises, and to be honest, I couldn't tell from where in the house they were coming from. I got up to head over to the door of the bedroom and opened it. Outside of my bedroom was a very narrow hallway which had a door to the bathroom. And then at the end of the hallway opened up to the living room. At the end of this hallway, though, like a scene right out of the movie I had watched not even an hour earlier, there was someone standing at the far end of the hallway right by the kitchen, the moonlight from outside coming into the bedroom windows and the windows in the living room was enough to see her. This woman looking right back at me. She started to walk backwards while still facing me. I didn't care though, still screamed and backed into my room before slamming the door shut and locking it. She didn't come running over and pounding on the door or anything like that. Instead, I heard running up the half flight of stairs to the exit of my apartment, and then the door slammed shut. I was frozen in shock for at least 10 minutes before I felt okay to take my phone and leave the bedroom to check the apartment. It didn't take long. It was a small apartment with not many hiding places. It was empty. I rushed to lock the door, wondering who that could have been and how they got in. I didn't call the police. I couldn't tell you why, but the next day I called the landlord and told him about it. He made a phone call to the upstairs tenant, and what I learned shocked me. The woman that broke into my apartment was an ex-lover of the man who lived upstairs, a crazy one at that. And after finding his address, somehow she broke into the wrong part of the apartment. The upstairs tenant came down to my door and apologized to me that following day, but I never got much detail from him or the landlord. I still wonder what that woman was planning on doing to him.